Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com. In this tutorial we're actually going to implement our fractal creator class, and I've remembered the thing that I wanted to say which I forgot in a previous video, which is that if we go to main.cpp here where we've got our color mapping, I actually find that at this level of zoom at least, a linear color mapping seems here to work better. So this is as much art as science. Let's say hue times 255 instead of using that PAL function to do our color mapping in main.cpp. And if we run it again, we get a nice sort of glowing fractal type effect, which maybe is better. I don't know. We'll leave it for the moment. So make sure you've got a backup of your program before you attempt this, because there's nothing worse than reorganizing code, making a complete mess of it, and then not even having the original program to work from. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to rename the variables that I anticipate are going to be member variables in my fractal creator class. Let's get rid of this double min and double max, which we're not using. So if we work down this, width and height, we're going to have to do away with those. We've already included fractalcreator.h here. Let's go ahead and create a fractal creator object in our main. So fractal creator, and we're going to pass the width and height in there. So 800, 600. Now width and height in fractal creator are going to be member variables. So I'm going to right click width and go to source. We should have a source rename somewhere. Actually, it's under refactor, I think. Refactor rename. Let's call this m_width, and it'll, as long as your program compiles, which is why I'm doing it at this stage, it will rename all your variables for you. But you've got to have basically a working program to do that. So I'll do the same with height. Refactor rename m_height. And we're going to get rid of these because we're not going to be using them, but I'm going to carry on renaming stuff first because I don't want to try to rename stuff with a program that doesn't compile. So if we take a look down here, zoom list is going to be a member variable too. So I right click that, refactor rename, and we'll call it m_zoom list. These pointers, histogram and fractal, are also going to be member variables. So let's call this m_histogram, and let's call this m_fractal. Maybe that's it. Actually, no. I think we've got maybe at least one more in here. So if I look through this, bitmap is also going to be a member variable, so let's also refactor and rename that to m_bitmap. Now I can take my declarations of all these member variables and paste them into Fractal Creator. So let's cut these from here and go to fractalcreator.h, and from this point onwards the program is not working anymore. It's not going to compile till we finish this now. So I'm going to add these as a private section in Fractal Creator. We need to put the initialization in the constructor initialization list. So let's cut this from here for the histogram, the actual initialization of it. Go to fractalcreator.cpp, and well, let's already start by initializing the width and the height. So I'll go back to fractalcreator.h, and we'll also add int m_width, int m_height. And then in the CPP file, we can say m_width is initialized from width, m_height is initialized from height. We can paste in the initialization of the histogram there, which I've still got copied. Just want to make sure that I did put a comma after that. So let's paste that in. This is m_histogram, and we can do the same for m_fractal. So I cut it from the header, and in the implementation file, let's put a comma in a new line, m_fractal, paste in that initialization. I'll just format that because it looks terrible. I always think these initialization lists, they look terrible anyway, but it's kind of the recommended way to do things, the most efficient way. So now back in main.cpp, let's take a look at what we've got. So we also need this bitmap. So let's cut that from here, go to fractalcreator.h, and we'll paste that in. Let's paste it in after these. And again, I'll do the same thing, cut the initialization from the header, and in the implementation file, we'll implement the initialization right there. So now back to main.cpp, and now I can start cutting my code. Well, we've also got, now that I look at it, we've also got this zoom list, so maybe that's the last one. Let's cut that from here. Go to fractalcreator.h, paste in the zoom list, and again we need to cut the actual initialization of it. Go to fractalcreator.cpp, and let's put a comma, m_zoom list, paste in the initialization. Maybe that's the lot. Possibly. So I can get rid of this m_width and m_height in main now, and then so this zoom list.add, we need to do this differently. We need to say fractalcreator.add zoom, and we need to have repeated calls to that method. So let's cut these from here, paste them in there. So if I copy that and I make 1, 2 copies, then I can paste the other zooms in there as well. So here's the second one, and we've got the third one here, which I'll paste in. Cut it from there. Now this is, maybe we still do need the width and the height here if we're going to refer to it in the zoom. So one thing that we could do is we could actually add the first zoom in Fractal Creator itself, which seems like a good idea. Then we don't have to refer to the width and the height here, and this we can fix this in a different way as well. For the moment, I'm just gonna let's create a variable height, because I just want to get this to compile for a start, and then we'll see a better way of doing this in a while. So this is just something that I'm going to use temporarily. So the height is 600, and we can just replace these two with this. Now I'm going to go to the add zoom method of fractalcreator.cpp, because we can easily implement that. All we have to do is say m_zoom list.add zoom, and then we can already add a zoom ourselves at the beginning here. So let's copy that and go to the constructor. In the constructor there, I'm going to add the first zoom to the zoom list. So if we go back to main.cpp, the first zoom is this one here, so I'm going to cut that from here, and in my CPP file I'm going to paste that in there, and then we can delete the remnants of it from main.cpp. Okay, now we can take this first nested loop, cut all of it from main, and paste it into fractalcreator.cpp calculate iterations. We can go to main.cpp and take the second loop here, cut that from main, and paste it into Fractal Creator draw fractal. We also need to do something with this code that calculates the total iterations. So let's go to fractalcreator.h, and we're going to need another method here. Let's call it void maybe calculate, or I think calculate total iterations is probably okay. So if we copy that, go to fractalcreator.cpp, let's add that method as well right here. This is quite a long and boring job, unfortunately. Let's say that it's a member, and from main.cpp I'm going to cut this code now and paste it into that method. So to store the total, let's change this to a member variable. Here's one I didn't spot. Let's say m_total. And if I go to fractalcreator.h, I can declare that. I can say int m_total. And we need to initialize it either here or in the constructor with 0, like this. So it's starting to take shape now. We've got this bitmap.write. That's no longer good. We need to say fractalcreator.write whatever we called it. I think write bitmap. And in fractalcreator.cpp, we've got a stub method for that, where we need to call m_bitmap.write name. Let's take a look at main.cpp. So main.cpp is looking much better now. It's really empty. So we've got add zoom. After that, we need to call fractalcreator.calculate iterations. Then we need fractalcreator.calculate total iterations. Then fractalcreator.draw fractal. There we go. So I think that looks good. Let's take a look at fractalcreator.cpp and scan through it, see if we can spot any errors or warnings. So here total should be m_total. There was a little error icon there in the margin on the left. Can't see any other error icons, so let's build it and run it and see if that works. So lots of errors here. Let's take a look. Unknown type bitmaps, that's just a missing header. So if I go to the top here, well, let's actually cut it from main. So this zoomlist.h, bitmap.h, mandelbrot.h, all of those we need to cut from main and put them in fractalcreator.h. And while we're at it, if we need all of these headers, it's certainly going to be in fractalcreator, so I'll cut those. I'll get rid of the iStream one. In fact, I won't get rid of it because we do actually need that one in main just to output the text finished. And we'll paste those headers in fractalcreator.h. Okay, save it all, build it, and it says build finished, and we'll run it and we'll see if we get something or not. So there we go, it looks the same as before. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. That's a bit of a messy and difficult task, but at least it's kind of good practice. So well worth having a go at. You don't have to follow, of course, the same system that I followed there. You can try to figure out some way of doing it, but it's good to have some kind of strategy, you know, because if you just start randomly cutting and pasting blocks of code, it does get a bit sort of hair-raising, and it is important to take a backup before you start doing this. One downside of this is that we have to call lots of methods in the right order, and if you miss one out, it's not going to work. So you might go on maybe to create a single method that calls everything in one shot, which will be quite nice. Okay, so until next time, happy coding.